Hello, this is Belinda Colleen. I'm back for my second video, and I'd like to continue with the same subject matter about debunking the hype surrounding eBay reselling. Today's topic is going to be sell-through rate. There's nothing more important than sell-through rate, and that's why it's so important to talk about it. It can make the difference in success or failure, basically. And but the problem is that the equations and the information we've been given about it is vague. The bottom line is you can look at the 90-day sell-through rate and see certain things. And if it's not seasonal items, it's probably great information just to look back and see what was listed in the last 90 days and what sold in the last 90 days. The problem comes in with anything that's even a little bit seasonal, because then all of a sudden it gets very skewed. The other thing that happens with the sell-through rate that is given out by most YouTube videos is they don't dive down deep enough. You can't just put what you put in the search screen is so important. You could search by Levi's 501. You could search by women's Levi's 501 blue. The bottom line is you have to be very specific, and you have to have the style type and any kind of numbers associated with it, because while 501 is fairly specific, the more specific, the better. The funny thing about it is, this is where the trends situation comes into play. You have to know about trends, and that's why it becomes very important to dive deep. Now, when I'm out thrifting and I've got my phone with me and I'm going to basically try to determine whether something makes sense to buy or not, I'm probably not going to go into a huge deep dive, and that's why so many beginners fail, I think, myself included. In the beginning, I would just put something basic in, thinking that was enough. I'd put in J. Crew women's top. I'd start with that, or I'd put size 12 or whatever. And the thing that becomes, I don't know, important is how specific you are, because all J. Crew tops are not the same. They're not all equally relevant or in demand. Same with any brand that you go into, and that's why it becomes important to play with it. I mean, we all want quick and dirty, right? We go out, we're thrifting, we're kind of in the heat of the battle, we've got our phone. We don't want to do 10 searches before we decide to buy something. And this is where seasons, just having time in the field, really comes in. At first, honestly, you need to do that. You know, when you're just getting started out, you have to search. Maybe you start with, Levi jeans, and then you say Levi jeans 501, and then you say men's, and you say blue, or you say black. The thing is, maybe the black jeans in that particular style sells better than the blue jeans, or maybe it sells for more. These are the little details that tend to make a difference. And that's why so many beginners get frustrated. They throw themselves in, they take a little bit of the information they get from YouTube, and honestly, I get it. A lot of YouTube creators, it's like, well, I'll give them something. You know, I want them to watch my channel, I'm going to give them a little something, but I'm not going to tell them the whole secret. And I get that, and I can't tell you the whole secret because I still don't know it yet. But I know a lot more than I did when I started, and I know that the information I got off of YouTube was not enough. And so it was incumbent upon me to dig down and say, hey, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't work. I got to do this. I got to do that. Well, maybe it means this. And that's what you're going to have to do. You're not going to get all the answers. I mean, in effect, people on YouTube that are selling on eBay are your competitors. And you have to remember that. So people might say, well, why are you giving us more information? And I'm going to say, because I know that no matter how much information I give you, most people won't do the hard work. I don't feel any threat. I don't think because I'm giving you better information that I'm creating more competition for myself. Most people aren't willing to work this hard. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. People go into this just like I did. It's like, oh, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to go shopping, pick out things I love. And that's going to be that. And it's going to be a great time and it's going to replace my income. People tend to not be realistic. People tend to not want to work that hard. Honestly, I remember in the first 3 or 4 months, I was like, wow, I'm not sure if I want to sign up for this. This is harder than I thought. And then you have to make a big decision. You know, do I want to work this hard or not? And then and there again, if you take some of the information you had that's not really thorough or complete, it's like crumbs. You know, you get a few crumbs here, a few crumbs there, and it helps, but it doesn't solve the big problem, right? And some of the big problem is the person that is reselling. You know, you have to decide, do I care about this enough, or do I want to do this enough to really take my bumps, figure out a lot on my own, and also just work that hard. That's the thing that I think I didn't sign up for, and I was a little shocked actually when it happened. It's hard work. It's hard physical work. It's hard mental work. You have to force yourself to be detail oriented, which isn't natural for me. But the deep dive into deciding whether to buy something is a lot trickier than people on YouTube typically admit. You know, you can't just like spend a minute and run a couple of numbers and say, okay, I got my answer. No, that's not the answer probably most of the time. Unless it's an evergreen item, which is an item that sells pretty much all year round, and it doesn't matter whether it's March or April or August or December, it doesn't matter. Those are great items. If you can just do an evergreen business, you'll probably make your life a lot easier. But if you're seasonal at all, you've got to dive deeper. Anytime you're dealing with clothes and brands, because of the trendiness of them all, you've got to dive deeper. That's just all there is to it. You may have to do 5 or 6 searches to decide. Now, the seasonality thing I know is a big thing. If you just go in and you do 90 days, which is the norm, you know, you look up and your sell-through rate is determined by the 90 days. 90 days works great if you're selling right in the season, at the end of the season. But let's say it's, I don't know, November, and you want to decide whether this particular sweater is something you should buy. Well, as we've talked about before, 90 days prior to November puts you in an area where maybe this sweaters don't sell that well. So you need to go into your seller's hub and research. It's all about research. I think that people that love to shop like I do and just want to have a good time and really rely on their instincts and their good taste, it's not enough. It's just not. You're going to have to do some research. And going into your seller's hub and your research is the best way to beat that 90-day number that may or may not matter depending on what season it is and what you're buying. For instance, if you're trying to buy sweaters in August, you need to go into your seller's hub and your research, and then there's a custom uh, click that you can make, which allows you to put in the dates. It'll only give you 90 days, though, to do a sales through rate. But you can pick a sales through rate that makes sense, right? A winter sales through rate, like, November through February or December through March, whatever. But you can put one in that will give you some more realistic figures to decide what the demand is than you'll ever get from a 90-day sales through rate that's out of season. And that's the tricky part, because we typically buy out of season moving forward, and that's the reality of the way things make sense in order to keep your store filled with the things you need. So that's very, very important. So that's one tip that is not given typically or enough on YouTube that I've noticed, because I used to think, I don't know how to figure this out. And then finally playing with it and going on to all of the different options, I figured it out. The second thing is to really dial down specifically when you search something. I know I've talked about it a little bit, but you've got to use the styles. Like if you're looking for tennis shoes, you can't just put in Nike size 9 women's. That is not enough information. You could make some terrible buys, even though Nike is incredibly popular, and you feel like, oh wow, these are going to sell their Nikes. Everybody loves Nikes. But the bottom line is, what's the style number? You've got to go into that tag that's usually inside of the tennis shoe, under the tab or on the side, and you've got to type in that model number. And a lot of times it can even go down and be as important as what's the color. Maybe black's selling, but green is not selling. Maybe pink's selling, but blue's not selling. This is where it gets sticky. And this is where people like me who are not detail-oriented get in trouble. You've got to go in to the weeds on this stuff. You've got to put in a lot of information, and you can try different things. A lot of times I'll put in a real basic search when I first start, and then I'll go into the weeds a little bit more and put a little more details, and then I'll put a few more details. You may have to do 10 searches to decide whether you should buy that item. And that's why people just say, enough. I can't handle it. I'm not going to do all that when I'm in the field. And honestly, I believe that's why so many people quit, because they're not willing to do the work. And the good news and the bad news is that it takes time. After a while, you realize as a seller, once you've had like 2 seasons in it, which I'm coming up on that myself, I see now, okay, I understand what sweaters sell. I don't always have to dive into that because I've had a season of that. The longer you're in this, the smarter you get, the better you get, even though you still have to keep up with trends. So I guess the good news is it won't always be as hard as it is the first year. And the bad news is that you can't ever completely relax, because you have to keep learning. You have to keep researching. Research is very important. I mean, if you want to know what sweaters can I make the most on, then you can use that Seller Hub research click and do your investigation. Put in different brands, put in different styles. Does cable sell better? Does cashmere sell? Well, we know cashmere sells great. Anybody that doesn't know that, they're in trouble. But bottom line, there are certain things like sweaters from Scotland or from certain areas do better. All wool does better. Basically, linens that are natural do better. 100% linen, 100% wool, those do way better than polyester. 100% cotton does better. People really that are, I don't know, conscientious about their health or whatever, they know these materials are better for their body and typically just better garments. So these are the kinds of things you start learning as you do it longer and longer. But be clear that you can't just take what 90% of the people on YouTube say, oh, just look up your sell-through rate. How many are listed? How many are sold? It's not that simple. And that's why we get in trouble. Because as newbies, as I once was and still feel like a lot of the time, it's not that simple. If you just follow that, you'll crash and burn. You won't ever feel like you've got a grip. You always feel like something's off. And it's because it is. It is off. You have to dive deep into this stuff. It's not that simple. And I'm like everybody else. I wanted simple answers. I wanted someone to tell me what to do so I could just go out and do it. But unfortunately, that just doesn't work. And, maybe it's because it makes for kind of a boring video on YouTube. Maybe it's because people don't want to create competition for themselves. There's all kind of reasons, and they're understandable. And I am not trying to degrade anybody else on eBay. I'm just saying, be aware that there's usually more to it than you hear about. And I'm not like the person with all the answers. I'm still fairly new. I'm just saying that, when I was bumping through all of this for the first couple of years, I was like, wow, maybe I need to do this. Maybe, you do have to use your common sense on things and know that you're probably not getting everything from anybody. And part of it's because we're all different people, and people make assumptions that you know something that they know because of something they said, but maybe you don't. But if you'll just listen to what I said and do a lot of your own research on Seller Hub, which is something you have access to, and that's something I do on my laptop. I don't do it on my phone. I do a lot on my phone, but I do a lot on my laptop. And now that I've been in it 2 years, I use my phone, and I work with 90-day totals a lot. And I don't dig deep until I get back home. And but I'm doing research before I go out and go sourcing now. That's what I've learned. It's like, okay, today I'm going to look for jeans because it's jean time. Everybody's buying jeans. Everybody wants jeans in the winter. So I'm going to do a lot of research on jeans before I walk out the door. And that helps me a lot. I might have a BOLO list that I've comprised, that I've got with me. So I'm doing a lot of work before I leave because I don't want to be the person on my phone 15 minutes to buy one item once I get in the store. So a lot of it's about prepping, getting ready, and then after 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, I keep hoping my time will come, you'll start feeling comfortable. You'll know a lot of the brand names. It doesn't mean you can't, you still have to keep up. That's the key. You have to keep up. But the bottom line is you'll start feeling comfortable. You'll start understanding aesthetics. You'll start looking at the fashion magazines. What's in? What are people buying? The people that are preppy and traditional and conservative, they buy the same stuff all the time. Easy. The trends, the 20-year-olds, whatever, their stuff changes constantly, and you'll have to stay with the magazines and on social media to find out what's working with those kids. They buy a lot. They spend a lot on clothes, and I'm talking mostly about clothes because that's what I do. It's different for other things. I mean, collectibles, oh my goodness, that's such a totally different subject that I can't even talk about it because I don't know much about it. I know about a little bit about China, a little bit about crystal because I like it, but I don't know enough to sell it really unless I would have to do a deep dive on it. But I wanted to give you a little more information. This is my second video. Tomorrow I'll do my third video. It'll be a deep dive on another thing that I feel isn't, I don't know, talked about thoroughly enough on the eBay videos I've seen. I'm just trying to improve based on my experience. But have a great day. Happy hunting out there. Bye-bye.